Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage. So here we are, Legend Makers podcast. We had a last minute cancellation, and the rock star that she is, Vonae Tanner, the Drone Legends curriculum director, jumped in last minute, and she's got professional development training in 35 minutes. So we're going to make this a quick half an hour one. But you know, as I was sitting here thinking, I've known you. So look, we met during the pandemic, right?
We did.
So, all right. So we met that summer. We were introduced by Scott Benjamin, right? Who was doing the Funplex and the family entertainment centers. And there was some tie in there. And so I was just getting started.
I had my own company, Math Mind Workshop. And
that's right.
Scott and I worked together on that. So
that's right. Boy, what a wild world, right? So you and I connected, and we were just kind of wrapping up fundamentals, what became STEM fundamentals, but you kind of came in and helped get it over the finish line with the team. And we've worked off and on. You worked with me in a contract role for a while. You created some other products like the Egyptian expedition and things like that. And then you went back into the classroom.
I did.
For a year.
Two.
Was it?
Well, really 3. I was in the classroom for 3.
You were not. Okay. Time flies. All right. So you went back in the classroom, and then you said, okay, I'm coming back out. Yep. And you were like, and you would continue to you were doing professional development. You're still working with us, contract role.
Right. I've been working with you the whole time.
And then we brought you officially on board as our director of curriculum and product development. And that's been how long now?
Since June.
Since June. June was official. Feels like longer. See, I would have thought you would have said a year. In that instance, I would have thought that you would say like a year. And I'm looking at you over here. I ought to look at the screen, right? But so look, the funny thing, here's what I was going to say. I've known you for quite some time, and shame on me, I think, because this is going to expose kind of where I have my deficits is I tend not to know people very well, right? Like a lot of times the critique is always going to be, and those that know me or listening is going to go, it's a lot. People know a lot about me, but I tend not to know a lot about other people. And so that's something I need to work on. But what dawns on me is I know about your family. Like I know your husband and your kids and everything like that, but I don't know your story about teaching. And so this podcast, as you know, is all about finding the why behind why educators get into teaching. Why do we start? I mean, I didn't because I'm not a teacher. And I was a terrible kid. I mean, to just be completely transparent to those of you listening, I was a horrifying student. I was like the student you don't want. I was the student you dreaded walking into the classroom to see because I was just awful. I mean, I got kicked away from Fairfax County Public Schools when I was in like 7th grade, failed for the 2nd time. And so I was horrific. And I got sent away. I wasn't allowed to go back. And then they tweaked some gears and they nipped a few nips and tucks and got me in shape. But so I'm always fascinated by why teachers start teaching. Because it's not I've talked to a lot of teachers now over the years, and they're all amazing. Like I'm blown away by their energy and their enthusiasm and their creativity. They have limited resources, and you walk into some of these classrooms and it's like walking into an oasis that they've created. And so I'm fascinated why people get involved. So let's start there. Like, why did you start? Tell me your backstory.
Well, the first time I decided I wanted to be a teacher, I was in 7th grade, ironically.
Oh, yeah.
I loved math. And I loved teaching. Everybody in my class would come ask me for help. So like we'd go to math class, and then afterwards everybody we'd all sit in the hall together and I'd teach them all how to do it. And I really enjoyed it. But through high school, I spent most of my time in theater and choir and the performing arts. And I still always wanted to be a math teacher, but nobody believed I would be because I wasn't really doing any math. But I got to college and I was done with all of the theater and I was in leadership. So I was done with the party planning. I was done with the performing. I just really, really wanted to teach, but I wasn't 100% sure math was what I wanted to teach. And then I took my first 2 classes, and just every class made me more in love with math. But I was nervous about getting into the classroom and how that would be. Well, I have a lot of brothers, and I learned how to deal with teenage brothers just to survive living.
Okay.
When I got into the classroom, I found out that I love teenagers more than I love math, which kind of astounded me.
You're a glutton for punishment, aren't you? You love teenagers. No, I have a teenager. I love my son, and I don't like my teenager. And I love my son to death. But the teenage version of my son, you know, there's sometimes we have to think about.
Yeah. I could never have done elementary. I loved my little kids, and I can handle somebody else's little kids for a day or two, you know, 1 or 2 at a time, but I couldn't teach elementary. And high school would have been fine, but really what I love is middle school.
You like that middle school
math.
And so, but why? Like because you loved math, but what was it about it that you went in? Why the teaching? I mean, you could have done other things with math. So what made you want to teach? What made you want to walk into that classroom?
You know, unfortunately, I was of the era when girls didn't really go into engineering and didn't do careers with math. Or I was on the tail end of that. I didn't get a lot of encouragement to pursue other things. And so every girl that I talk to that's going into math, I say, start with engineering. And then if you want to move to the classroom, you can, but start with engineering or with something more theoretical mathematics. I don't regret that decision at all. I don't regret going into teaching, but the why is because I knew I wanted to teach and I knew I loved math. And the two went together, and I wasn't really encouraged to, you know, even at the university level, my counselors were like, okay, well, here's what you do to get that degree.
So it made sense for you.
It made sense. But once I got into it, I really do enjoy the teaching of it almost more than the doing of math. I enjoy teaching math more than doing math because I just love the aha. I love it when a kid goes, oh, and I really enjoy, I know this sounds weird, but I enjoy like picking through their brain and finding the one piece that didn't make sense and putting that in and then having it all connected.
And what about that? What about that does it for you? It's like a puzzle?
Yeah, maybe.
It's the math in you. You're mathing kids.
Yeah, I'm mathing kids. That's right. Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. I like the look on their face. I also like when a student comes into my classroom and they're struggling, either socially or emotionally, and I just like to be the safe haven for them. I like to be the person that says, "Hey, I'm proud of you, and I like you just the way you are. You just keep going. That's all you have to do is keep going because you're doing great." And it's just, I really enjoy that aspect as well.
That's awesome. I did not know that. Yeah, well, look at that. And so then you taught for how long and where? You're based in the Atlanta area, right?
I am. So my career track is different than others. I taught for 3 years in Utah. And then I joined a little startup .com company thinking I'd like ride the .com wave, you know, and they had like a pool table and they had free snacks and all the fun things. And it didn't quite, you know, I didn't quite catch the massive wave of the .com.
Okay.
So many, it didn't crash, but it didn't really like flourish either.
It didn't become Amazon. How's that?
It didn't become Amazon.
Right.
It did get bought by a really big company, and then it got bought again, and it got bought again. And then we were able to adopt our kids. And as soon as I held my first one in my arms, I just couldn't. We'd worked so hard, you know, to have him join our family. I wanted to be there and see all the moments.
Wow.
So,
wow. Awesome.
So that's when I left kind of the professional world. I worked part-time all the way throughout with a lot of different companies. I did curriculum writing, teaching, tutoring, assessment creation, lots of different things in online education, the online education world.
Yeah.
And then started my own company when my oldest was in 3rd grade because I wanted to just have a chance to teach math. So I did little math summer camps out of my house. Yeah. And that grew and grew until the pandemic, and the pandemic killed that because we were teaching it we ended up teaching these, it wasn't math anymore. It was now STEM summer camps in theme parks based on, and it was all the physics of play, how to swing or slide or jump or fall, all that stuff.
And that's when I met you.
And that's when I met you, and I started working for you, and I've been
It's
really
great.
happy here.
And you've been
And so
amazing.
I went back to teaching for a few years, just needing that. I always promised myself I would. And I came to a point in my life, which you probably know about, but I came to a point when I needed to decide if I was going to really ever go back to teaching or not.
Yeah.
And once I made the commitment to go back to teaching, I just had to stick with it despite other great possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I did because I learned a lot. I'm really proud of myself for keeping that goal. I was really happy getting back into the classroom. And I kind of feel like that itch had been scratched.
So a couple of things there. What did you like about getting back? I mean, what was it? What was it that pulled you back in? You were proud of yourself. What about it? Like,
I feel like it's the most noble of professions and the most underserved, and the least supported by society in general. Maybe not the least supported, but it's just not a revered job.
right.
At least when you're in it, you don't feel you feel revered by the students, but not by society. Oh, you're just a teacher, and so, sometimes I get that impression. And I just felt like it was really important to give back into that system that gave me so much.
Awesome.
Also, my son, my youngest, was just starting at that school. And so I got to be with him and watch him progress. That was really important.
Yeah,
that
I
was
bet.
one of the biggest parts of it for me.
That was, I remember that. Yeah, I remember. Is that Zach?
That would be Zach, yeah.
That'd be Zach. Zach was a drone legend.
Zach was, and in fact, that's also how we met Scott. He told me, Scott Benjamin told me about your company, and then I signed Zach up.
That's right.
And then we started talking after Zach.
He was virtual. When we were doing it online, which seems like forever ago. Just seems like forever ago. So, and then, okay, so what we do here, and I'm going to actually look at the time, but we have some time. Like I like to, you know why we do this. We want to help other teachers. We want to make sure that you're heard and that they hear from others. So if you were just starting out, so let's just assume I'm new, I'm either in college or I'm thinking about it or I'm just entering in the profession. What advice would you have for me?
That's a great question. I think my first piece of advice would be know yourself and stay true to yourself. There are a lot of pushes and pulls within being a member of a faculty. The needs of the students, the needs of the teachers in your department, the needs of the teachers in your grade, the needs pushed down by the administration, the needs of the parents. So there are a lot of people vying for the limited resources that you provide, and be able to know your why, know why you're going into teaching, and then work really hard to hold on to that why. If it's to impress other teachers, that why won't get you very far. It's to impress parents, that why might not get you very far, but it's a good one to hold on to. If it's to inspire a future generation, that why will get you really far. You do have to, the other piece of advice I would give is stay as positive as you can. It can be a difficult situation when you're working with students that come from nothing or come from very dire circumstances at home. Realize in advance you can't solve all of those problems.
Right.
You can't heal and help all of those students, but that doesn't mean that you don't add value to their lives. And so don't let some situations that may seem hopeless pull you down, because there's always hope and there's always an impact that you can make, even if it's just for 10 minutes in their day.
That's huge. Well, I think that's huge because I look at, I can only go by my experience of what people dealt with me. And when I look back on it, and I was rotten, I got to tell you, I talked back. I was, you and what army is going to do what to me and this and that. But there were people that actually did impact. And I think you're right. Sometimes it's just the 10-minute mark, right? In fact, I'd argue it was those that actually took the time to care. When I look back on them, those are the ones that I remember the most, not the ones that wrote me off. There were ones that wouldn't let me not live up to my potential. They held me accountable, and not in this like punishment sort of way, but they looked at me and said, "You're better than that." Like you're better than that.
And did you believe them in that moment?
not in the moment, but actions speak louder than words. So how they behave towards me, and how the whole it was compounded over time with those people, right? That consistency of that, and they stuck with me. I tell you, I think it must be the hardest job in the world to deal with some of these kids, and not only some of the kids, some of the parents and some of the families must be challenging.
Yeah,
but
there's definitely got some good stories there.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, you do such a wonderful job with us here. You write all of our curriculum, or most of our curriculum. You do a great job with assessments and standard alignment. And so I think that's your skill set's there. And now you've entered in kind of professional world again. But when you see what we're doing, and I know you're part of this whole Drone Legends thing that we've created, and you have your hands in just about all of it, from Little Legends all the way up through the FPV initiator drone racing. You worked on that. So we're doing some really cool stuff in education. I mean, I think back to when I was coming up, if this had been available, maybe I would have been more up at the front of the room. What else? Yeah. What about, it's easy to slide in. We live in a very polarized world right now. It's either us and them, and it's easy to get sucked into the negativity of life. Life's challenging. There's always, the headlines always show you all the bad stuff, but there's truly a lot of great stuff going on as well. And so I'm me. I'm an optimist. I like to look at the glass of the world, the glass half full, and the world through rose-colored glasses. What are you optimistic about in education? Like, what about education and where it's going? What excites you? What are you optimistic about?
Well, so I work for this really cool company called Drone Legends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But really, I was writing something today. I think I was working on advice for a teacher on incorporating a drone into a classroom. And I used a drone. So last year, when I taught mathematics last year, I would use the drone as a reward. I went through, I don't know, probably $200 worth of candy as rewards. I would give rewards like you get to sit in class without your shoes on, or you get to be the first in line to go to lunch, or, there are those kinds of intrinsic rewards. But at the end, I started using, I'll give you 5 minutes of flying a drone time. And I will tell you, nothing motivated those students more. I had kids that had hardly done anything all year that did 30 solid minutes of math so that they could fly a drone for 5 minutes. It's just so engaging and exciting. It's fun to fly. It's fun to crash. The crash didn't hurt them or anyone else. We set up very simple safety rules, and everybody watched, and everybody gave the pilot some advice. And in 5 minutes, they put it down and just went right back to math to try and get some more done to prepare for a test.
That's pretty cool.
I love technology. And one piece of STEM that I love is the fail process. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, in our schools, we're teaching our students to perform, not to learn.
Right.
Test is just get the answers right. Can you regurgitate the answers? And that's not every teacher, and that's not all the time. But in general, we live in a very performance-based society, and social media has increased the image of the importance of performance. But really, the way we grow is through failure.
For sure.
Not by performing, but by failing. And that is an important piece. That's such a central piece of STEM. If our young kids go into the workplace and fall apart when they fail, we're never, ever going to get anything done. We have to learn, embrace, and then grow from failures, or we're not going to be able to progress as a nation. And I love that it's placed within an engineering and technology framework, because that fail point is a lot easier to see, and it's easy to fix. It's also the subject where you don't expect failure, or we have a lower tolerance for failure. So if you're writing an essay, or if you're talking about history, you're allowed to have different opinions. But when you're solving a math problem, there's not a second opinion. There's a right answer and a wrong answer. And so to have a fail point within math and science, I think, is just a beautiful.
I like that. Piece. The fail point between math and science. And I agree with you 100%. I think that we have to teach kids how to take risks, stretch themselves outside of their comfort zones, try new things, And in the engineering design process, we do that. There's that iterative process where try, it doesn't work, find out where those stress points were, what about it didn't work, iterate, try it again. I mean, it's how an infant learns to walk. It's how we're wired, right? And we bake it out of us.
We do. And we create a shame in the place. If we pull out reverence and respect for failure, then we replace that with shame. And that shame for failure stops progress.
You know what? Listen to this. This has never happened before. Maureen's coming in. I'm going to let her in and introduce you to her. She must have gotten caught up, but let's let her in. We're recording. I'll let her know we're recording. She's the pod guest, and then you can go do PD. But let's do a little chat here for a moment. We're probably going to ambush her a little bit, and we'll keep this in because it's kind of fun. And
I'll be quiet for a minute.
That's okay. We'll bring Maureen in. I've never met Maureen. She's a guest, and we had seen her on Twitter doing some interesting things. And so we're always interested to talk to. Hello, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? Let's get now we are in the midst of recording right now. So what happened is, I think we've got our times mixed up.
Yeah, I had 6 o'clock.
And you're in Kansas. So we got our time zones wacky. But that's okay. I want to introduce you to our director of curriculum instruction here at Drone Legends. This is Vonae Tanner. And so she and I have just been chatting, and we're recording right now, just FYI, and we'll keep this real fun. Nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet you too. Hi, man.
Why don't you? So Vonae is, so Vonae's been with us for several years. She's our director of curriculum instruction here at the Drone Legends program. And we were just chatting about a few things we like to think about here is why do people get into teaching? Why did you? And we'll talk about that. Yeah. What advice do you have? We're trying to provide value to other teachers that may be just starting out or thinking about entering the profession. And what gets you excited? And Vonae and I were just talking about what excites her. But before we dive into that, tell us about yourself, Maureen, because I've never met you, and it's a pleasure to meet you. So glad you're here, actually. This is great. This is cool.
Well, I've gotten into teaching and education later in life. So I'm a late starter. I started when most of my friends were retiring. So there you go. But my degree is actually in engineering. So I worked as an industrial engineer for a company called Food Maker, which owns Jack in the Box restaurants. I did that for about 4 years.
Did you?
And then stayed home with kids. But I've always enjoyed working with kids. So I've done a lot in the schools. I did some subbing, did Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, room parent mom, religion classes, and all of that. And so when it came time to step back into the workforce, I thought I just want to do something I really enjoy. And math has always been a strong suit for me. So luckily, I was able to kind of step into a position that was available. And that was 9 years ago.
9 years ago. And you work with what grades? What grades are you working with now?
So my first job, the last 7 years that I started with, was at a middle school. So I had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math.
Okay.
But then I was asked to also help develop their STEM program because they were just starting to get into a STEM program throughout the academy. So, but primarily middle school, but now I'm at a K through 8th school.
You are.
So this year I'm tackling the little ones.
The two of you, I'll just step back because it's just, if you had missed the whole first half of this conversation, Vonae's math, right? She loves math. Engineering, loves engineering. She was a math teacher. And she likes working with middle schoolers and maybe high schoolers. And she talked about the challenges of working with some of the littles. And so the two of you, zip it. This is good. Ladies, chat. So
Maureen, we need to go to lunch together.
That would be awesome. Where are you at?
In Georgia.
She's in Georgia. Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Road trip.
Yeah, road trip in it. There you go.
Yeah.
So
I know it's just been I kind of fell into this job never having taught before. I came into the school 2 weeks into the school year. with no tests, no worksheets, no anything. So
What did you do?
flew by the seat of my pants that first
Yeah,
year.
tell us about that. That sounds wild. What did you do?
It was crazy. So I had a book,
Yeah,
and
I
I
had a
did
book.
have some
Okay.
worksheets that went with the book, but no answers. So I had to, do those all on my own.
Wow.
But I had a great staff. We were a small group, but very supportive. And that's, one thing I would definitely recommend to teachers is you just take advantage of your peers, and their information and their wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
and each year it got better. And people told me that too, that it'll get easier. And I feel a little sorry for the first, year of the students, but I did have actually some of them that came back and went on to engineering, and they were really excited to tell me that they took that route. And
that's cool.
So I thought, yeah, that inspire some of them. We'll see.
That's great. And I'm looking at your bio, and I love this. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. So I think you and so it's funny. You share the math bond and the teaching bond with Vonae. And I did the same later in my life. I don't come from academia. I was in life sciences, a sales and marketing person for years, and fell into this whole world of curriculum and instruction and STEM. And I knew nothing about it. It was foreign to me. And so that's why I'm so fascinated with those that teach, because I was telling Vonae I was a terrible, terrible, terrible kid. And so I'm always fascinated by the people that stuck it out with me. And I meet a lot of the educators today through the programs that we run. And I'm just always blown away by how optimistic and upbeat and just super into what they're doing, right? Just all about, you walk into those classrooms and you can feel the buzz. I mean, I can just think about all the different classrooms that I've stepped into since I started this program. And they're all the same. I mean, they're all different in their own ways, but they all have that vibe, that energy. And so we want others to feel that coming in, like, hey, what can we use? What can we do? But you're saying it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And I agree 100%. For me, it was like, hey, it's halftime, baby. What's the next half? God willing, what's the next half going to be? Right. So,
right.
Well, tell us what that was and what got you from there into what was your epiphany? What happened that you were just like, okay, let's reinvent?
Call it a God thing, I guess. Okay. I just really felt that was my calling. And I was at a point in my life, my kids were grown, gone, so I could put that energy into it. I don't know so much that I would have had the energy years ago, but now, and I have that passion for STEM and for math and for science and the engineering. And I hope the kids can feel that from me, as I'm teaching them. And just offering, right now, I'm just doing STEM. So I'm not doing any math teaching. So I can kind of create my own programs. I can create my own electives. The teachers that do it with me, I tell them, find something you're passionate about that you want to share with the kids. Because STEM is a broad field.
Sure.
We've got it. And really, we call it STREAM there because we put the arts in, we put the religion into it too.
Okay.
So I told the kids, don't Google STREAM though, because you'll get pictures of brooks and rivers. But that's what we call our program in the Catholic school system. So, but yeah, just to find those things that you're passionate about. And I keep learning, I wanted to start hydroponics, knew nothing about it. So I learned along with the kids, but gave them that opportunity. So it's just, I'm always kind of looking for those new things that are different, things I can bring into the school that they haven't had before.
That's cool.
And I'm on my second year now at St. Agnes. So,
St. Agnes, yep.
Yeah.
And that's got to be the funnest part, that's what keeps teaching still alive and exciting, is when you find something you love and you can then share that, and you find something new and you share it and you try it. And I think that's so cool, Maureen.
Yeah. Right. So Vonae has to run to training. You and me, Maureen, we're going to stay on. So we're going to hang out. If you're still good with that, we're going to hang. I have lots to talk to you about. Vonae, good to see you. She's going to go to one of our professional development sessions and tell people how to use drones in the classroom. So
nice to meet you.
It was nice to meet you, Maureen. Good luck and have a great year.
Bye, Vonae. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. So here we are. Good. So this has been great. I thought that was actually really cool. I think that'll make for a lot of fun, interesting listening for a lot of people. So now imagine that. So your why was that you just felt the calling. You felt like, look, I had done, because I love the people's why. Mine was that I had felt that I'd not wasted, but that I had kind of reached a point in my life where I said, I don't know that this is what I should be doing. And I wasn't happy doing what I was doing necessarily. I didn't feel fulfilled. And drones just happened to be something I was messing around with at the time. And I got pulled into a classroom to talk to kids about drones. And I walked out of there that day. I think a lot of people know my story. And I was like, oh, well, that took 51.5 years to show me. That's cool. And I'm going to do that. And that's what I've been doing since. What was your big shift again? Like why I just want to get to the heart of why you love to teach, why you teach. Because, you know, it's not always the sexiest profession. People, and Vonae and I were talking about it. It's a noble profession. But within the sphere of it, it's noble. But, you know, when people say I'm a teacher, it's not as like, hey, well, I'm an entrepreneur and I started the latest tech company or whatever. So tell me why.
The why. I think really because there's a saying, and it was on the back of one of the t-shirts of the group that I was with. And it says, it's better to be a kingmaker than a king. And I think education gives you that opportunity to hopefully take the kids to somewhere that they're passionate about and to find their calling. And, you know, I was just at that point in my life where I could make a change. And that's what, you know, I really decided, I think I want to be in the classroom and I want to help these kids, inspire these kids. And
you've been doing that now 7 years, you said?
This is actually my 9th year.
9th year.
It was 7 years at one school and then this is my
right, got it. And so you really do enjoy it. I mean, it's something.
I do enjoy it. Yeah.
You're not.
I mean, there's days, you know, don't get me wrong, that you're like, why am I doing this again? But it's those, you know, those aha moments you get from the kids. It's the interaction. I do like middle school. I mean, they're a quirky group, but but they're inquisitive and they still want to learn and they're, you know, willing to try new things most of the time. So, yeah, so it's just it's been a good experience. Again, I feel like I'm giving back some of that. With the engineering, I had teachers that inspired me along the way. And so hopefully I can do that same thing.
Right. And then if you were, so you talk about your first year, you know, didn't know what you were doing and you just kind of had to feel your way through it. And now many years later, you look back and go, oh, if I had only known. What are some of those only knowns? If I'm starting out, what would you tell those that are entering or thinking about entering the profession? What advice would you have for them?
Entering it, patience, you know, and don't try to be perfect at everything. It's okay. I tell my students that too. It's okay to fail. That just means that you're trying and you're learning. And so, and use your resources. I mean, the teachers, the ones that have been there for a while, will help you, and just don't get discouraged. And then my first principle too, always said to the kids, say yes to good opportunities. And so that's something that I've taken with me as a teacher. So I try to take advantage of as many PDs as I can. Anything with the word free on it is really good. And that's kind of how I stumbled into the STEM sports as well. But it's just, you know, always as a teacher, you're continuing to learn too. And, you know, that would probably be my best advice.
Take advantage of those teachers that have been around for a while, seek them out, introduce, find out what they're doing, and then free is good. A lot of free resources out there, right? Great.
And then, even social media, you know, media, there's groups you can join on there, and you can get a lot of information, middle school math teachers, middle school STEM teachers. It's amazing.
There's a STEM feed on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I found it. It's great. You can literally go and add it to your feed, and you can literally go into the STEM feed, and instead of scrolling through garbage, you can scroll through STEM.
Okay.
It's incredible. You got to go and like add it to your feed. We can Google it, but it's there. And so now when I open up my phone, I can literally move over to the STEM feed and I can watch teachers doing experiments, talking about different STEM projects they're working on, different resources that they have that people, it's, to your point, there is an enormous amount of content out there that it's almost hard to sift through it all, right? To find out
Right.
what kind of is good. And so that might be a resource. I think we found you and I were introduced through on Twitter. I
Is
believe
that
so.
right? I didn't really know where you
Yeah,
found
I think it
me,
might have
but
been
you found
Twitter.
me.
Yeah, I think we found you working out
Okay.
there. So I think it was Twitter. So there's a lot of resources. Teachers Pay Teachers, I think, is a good place for people to go for some cool ideas. And hopefully podcasts like this, people can listen, learn. That's why we try to talk to teachers and say, give advice or, what can. And so to that point, Vonae, we're kind of talking about this as we jumped in. It's easy to get pulled into kind of the negativity when we think about social media, right? So you can watch social media, you can watch the news, and you can get pulled into this kind of negative mindset real easy. And it's easy to find the negatives. It's because nobody shines light on all the beautiful stuff that happens. It's sensationalized, right?
Right.
The bad stuff gets the headlines, right? So I like to think of myself as an optimist. And so what about today, like education today versus the 9 years ago that you started, or what are you seeing? What kind of trends are you seeing that you're optimistic about, that excites you about where either the profession is going or education as a whole? What makes you feel good about it?
Well, I think we just actually completed a PD on the building thinking classrooms. Are you familiar with
No,
that?
tell me about that.
Okay. So it's based on a book that's written by Peter, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. But it's kind of a movement away from the more traditional and getting that creative thinking going, getting kids out of their desk, working vertically, working in groups, because I think those are the things that also prepare you for a profession. If you can do the critical thinking and you can work in groups, that's what you're going to be doing out in industry. And this method, which can be used in things other than math too, I think is a push that I've seen, and we're going to kind of explore it further within our cohort of stream directors and also within our schools. So that's kind of a trend I see going. Technology is changing rapidly, so we're in a position we got to keep up with it, which for being an engineer, I'm still technically challenged, because when I was going to school, the computer took up an entire building, and we had the cards you had to punch out, and God forbid you drop them on the way to class.
I remember the punch cards too. I remember my father worked in, he was an engineer, and I used to go to he had a little business, and I used to go to his building, and there'd be those punch cards all over the floor. I remember them. The vanilla, they were that like vanilla cream, like the folders. They had that kind of material, but they were the little etched punch cards, and vivid memory of that. That's dating myself, but yeah, I remember that very well.
When the movie Hidden Figures came out and she was working with an IBM computer, I was like, yeah, we've been
there. It is. There it is.
Yeah, the technology. So, I mean, the technology, and I tell the kids, we talk about that all the time about, how things have progressed in the last 30 to 40 years. I think it's going to go even further in their lifetime. So we're trying to prepare
can you imagine?
Yeah, to do that critical thinking. And one thing about engineering too, I said there's a misconception that, engineers know everything. Well, that's not necessarily the case. We just kind of know how to go about getting the answers, or, doing the problem solving, but it's not that you know everything.
I think they think they know they don't know everything, and they're inquisitive. They want to learn, right? Their life. And I think you got to the point. I'm really going to look at this. If you could email me the title of this book, because we'll link it in the show notes so other people can do it. You don't have to come up with the title or author now, but it seems like it's building the thinking classroom. And I like this idea because I went to a non-traditional high school that focused on character development back in the 80s. It was way before its time. And I would argue that your point of the exponential, I mean, you think of what we've seen in the last 30 years. I mean, I remember I remember being around the first kind of personal computers, and I think about what happens today, and I think about how quickly that went by, where, I mean, there's no more Walkmans and record players, all the things that everything is now in one little device, and it used to take up a desk, right? You could put it all here. And so you think about how quickly it's changing, and now with AI and all the way that that's going, the ability to utilize that, I think getting kids to think, to like, to learn.
Right.
I think that's important.
I wonder.
Yes, like how can I, right? And how does that work? Or what can I do with that? So becoming like lifelong learners, I think is going to be more important for these kids coming up than it even was for us. Right. Because it's going to change so fast that if you don't stay ahead of it, you will fall behind. Right.
I agree totally. I think it's that creative thinking, thinking outside the box. And I wonder why, I wonder what if, it's those questions that they have to keep.
Yeah. So this thinking classroom concept, I like quite a bit. And I think we'll link to that book. So that's what gets you excited. So those kinds and you do see that kind of trend kind of taking hold of, pendulum swing, right? So, a lot of this focus on school was, get the good grade. And I'm sure we're all about standards and tests, and you have to map to the standards and you have to be there. But I see just in the few years that I've been here, more STEM electives being made available in like class day to do more of give educators like yourself more flexibility to do some non-traditional kinds of things with the students that supplement what they're getting out of the class day. Is that an accurate kind of assessment of what you see?
Yeah. And I think too, when you give them those real world opportunities, like I know we talked about the sports thing, the STEM Sports is the company that I've been working through, but you find those interests and the kids are interested in the sports. So then we dive into what's the math and science behind it. What's the evolution of the glove? How did it progress? What kind of force goes on the bat from the ball? Those kind of things that they can see where it applies in the real world, and they're interested in the sports and they love to play it. So there's that combination of getting that math and science in there. But,
yes, for sure. For sure. So STEM Sports. So you're using that program. That's a pretty cool program. I've seen them. We go to a lot of the trade shows, and I know those folks pretty well. Yeah. So.
And that's how I found them, was just one little booth at a trade show that there weren't many people at. And
we're heading out tomorrow. We're going to Florida after school tomorrow. So we'll be at one of those little booths tomorrow. So I'll be on my feet for 12-hour days for the next few days, but that's all right. I really enjoy it. I get to meet lots of people like yourself that come by, and we have really great conversations. Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to end on a note, like any last words? I want to be mindful of your time, and any last words for folks that, again, we like to use this as a resource. So what else could you say to those folks that your peers, that is an inspiration to them? What can you do to fire them up tonight?
I think go back to say yes to good opportunities, as many as you can, and keep learning as teachers too. And find the joy, things that you're interested in. If you're passionate about it and you bring it into the classroom, you're going to get those kids passionate about it too. So
great. Excellent. And where can we find you? I know we have you on Twitter. I've got your handle there. We'll plug it in the show notes. Anything else that you want to talk about? Anything you want to share, promote? Do you have any books that you're doing or any cool projects you're working on?
Don't have any books that I'm doing.
Okay.
One of the things that brought the speaker into us, I will mention and give them a plug to, is the Brown Family Foundation. And they're big here in the Kansas City area in working with schools and helping them with programs. And they were the ones that brought in Peter for the 2-day seminar. So, things like that is great that we have that opportunity to do that.
Good.
So,
excellent.
Yeah. So
well, great. Maureen, thank you. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I appreciate it. It's a genuine pleasure to meet you. I will start following you on Twitter. So start posting, and we'll post a lot of cool stuff.
Okay. And I'm going to sign up for LinkedIn. I've been kind of, just trying to get my bearings straight. So I will get on there too, and people can find me there.
Very good. Okay. Well, listen, we've made new friends here. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. I hope everybody got a lot out of hearing you. And then I think the dialogue with you and Vonae was great too.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you too. And I'll be in touch with those email or links.
You got it. Okay. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right.
Take care, Maureen. Bye-bye.